Howdy YouTube, Immortalium here, and today I'm going to be talking about a very important series, and it is Sailor Moon. Now I reviewed Codename Sailor V recently, so if you want to check out that one there, check out that first before watching this, okay? Okay. My opinion on this series. To be honest, it's a mixed bag for me. Now, don't go hating me yet. I mean, let me explain myself. Okay, I guess the best way to go about this is to kind of go by volume. Now, I won't do too many spoilers, hopefully. Hopefully no spoilers. We have Sailor Moon, Volume 1. And okay, let me just praise the good aspects first, because that'll get me some love at least. First of all, the art. I mean, I just love the artwork. I mean, I just find that gorgeous looking artwork. I know it's old style, but like, there's a real sense of detail, there's a real sense of composition, you know, it's really, really beautiful artwork. Very shoujo, but of course it's shoujo, so it has to be expected. And Naoko Takeuchi, she really shows she's able to present comedy very well. Like, there was a good few bits where I was reading this and I was laughing because of how funny it was, so I praise that as well. But now I have to explain one of my two big issues with this series. In this volume, we are introduced to 3 other Sailor Guardians. We are, other than Sailor Moon, of course, we're introduced to her as well. We're introduced to Sailor Mercury, to Sailor Mars, and to Sailor Jupiter. And the way that she, introduces these people is very sloppy, in my opinion. You know, you get a single chapter, that isn't particularly long, I might add, that kind of just clumsily throws a villain at them. The villain gets dispatched and it awakens their power. And we don't get to know these characters at all. I mean, we don't get to know who Mercury is. We don't get to see who Jupiter is. The only one that gets any kind of development at all, I guess, is Sailor Mars. And in that case, it's just shown that she's aggressive, that she's she works at a shrine, and that's it really. Like, there's very little development there. Now, I must admit, I have to praise how Luna is introduced and how Mamoru is introduced. Mamoru being a Tuxedo Mask. Don't worry, it's, you find that out within this volume, so, it's not much of a spoiler. I do praise that, and they get well developed, I think. Yeah, okay, maybe I won't do it volume by volume. What I'll do is, I'll just explain right now. I'll just say the characters that I think got fair development in the series, from the 6 that I've read, are Sailor Moon herself, then Mamoru Chiba, then Luna, then Sailor V to an extent, although that might have something to do with the fact that she had a manga to her own before, and then Artemis, of course, and then we get, what's her name? Chibiusa, then Pluto, who was there, and that's kind of it, in my opinion, of real development. And that kind of brings me on to the villains. The villains are, okay, in the first 2 acts at the very least, the villains are very, very not good. Not good at all. Before this, I was most familiar with Queen Beryl, and that would mainly be due to the fact that I watched a show called Robot Chicken, and there was a great gag, I think in season 1, where you know, Queen Beryl's after Sailor Moon and all that, and like she sends a henchman and he gets an erection and he runs off, you know, each time Sailor Moon transforms. And then like Queen Beryl's staring at Sailor Moon's picture and all of a sudden she gets an erection. It's like, anime is weird. So that's how I knew her. But I expected that she would be the main villain for the 12 volumes. And when I say 12 volumes, I do, what these actually are 18 overall. So I read 9 volumes technically, because these are the special, you know, there's extra pages in there and all that jazz of so actually I've read 9 volumes. And she's gotten rid of actually very fast, and we don't really get to see, you know, we don't get to see how she developed, you know, like why she's a villain, you know, what made her this villain, what her, well, like we get to see a bit of her motivation, but, and then why does she serve this, you know, being this evil entity in the first place? We don't really get to see that either. And I think she could have done a better job explaining Queen Beryl. And that's the first arc. And then we have our second arc, which I think actually started out very promisingly, because you know, Chibi-Usa falls from the sky, you know, and then she points a gun right at Sailor Moon's head, and it's so unexpected, and you have this little girl pointing a gun right into Sailor Moon's head, and it's actually very funny the way that it's presented. Again, going back to the funniness of it, like, you know, that she could have presented that as either, you know, not funny or funny. She introduced the funny, and it was very funny. So, but then once we got introduced to the villains, it kind of just dropped from there, I thought. And keep in mind, throughout all this, we're seeing her Sailor Guardian buddies, and they're not really getting any development. We see a little development in Jupiter at one point, but besides that, we don't really see much development from them, which I think is really, really awkward. Now, it might be a different case if someone's watched the anime. I know the anime has all these filler ones that kind of expand the characters' personalities and all that, so maybe if I watched the anime before, maybe that would make a different case. But I'm not talking about the anime, I'm talking about the manga. So I found that to be a big issue. And then talking about the villains, I mean, the villains in the second arc were a major issue. Did I mention Sailor Pluto actually in that development, character development? She actually was developed nicely as well, I thought. But these villains, they're just, I don't know, they're cliche, they're thrown together, they're not developed at all. I really think it's a disappointment, I mean, in terms of villains. Because I like meaty villains, you know. When I read my One Piece, when I read my Naruto, when I read Cardcaptor Sakura, for instance, I mean, that had very good villains in it as well, and they weren't, you know, thrown at Sakura and like dispatched or anything, you know. Just okay. I'm getting off the point. One thing I do have to say though is that after the first 2 arcs, I think, if I recall correctly, I think the third arc starts in volume 6. Actually starts out very promisingly, and it looks like it could be good. Now the villains I'm kind of worrying a bit about. I'm just wondering, you know, could it just turn out to be a whole bunch of cliches again? But yeah. So I'm just hoping that there's, you know, some kind of promise in that story arc. Yeah, so let me just see if there's anything else I need to discuss. You know, the character development is all over the place. You know, you have some very good character development, you have some very awkward character development. You have your villains, which are very poor. There's some good twists, I'll admit that, even if you can spot them coming. You know, like there's one about Chibi-Usa, anyone who's read the manga or seen the anime should know what I'm talking about, so I won't spoil it. But just to say, that is a good twist, even if I spotted it coming. And yeah. So, anything else I need to talk about? Okay, maybe I'll talk about translation notes. The translation notes I thought were quite sufficient. I'll do that. I'll show you the covers. There were maybe not as much as I was hoping that there would be, but in the end, there were some bits that I was like, what are they talking about? And then I look at it back and I go, oh yeah. So overall, they were quite satisfactory. It gets a bad rap for translation, and I've yet to read the. I probably won't ever read the Tokyopop translation. Maybe they'll do a re-translation in the future, but so far, I don't see anything really that is an issue of translation for me. I think the biggest issue I have with it is the way that the story is developed. Yeah. So I'm sorry to disappoint anyone out there who might be going. Why is this guy talking about something he doesn't understand? Sailor Moon's brilliant. I'm just giving my opinion here. Like, I really did have issue with the character development and the villains. I know that isn't too much overall. In comparison to the fact that you had some very good character development, and you have your great comedy, you have your great art, you have some interesting twists. Overall, do I recommend this? Yes, I do. But actually, there's a guide called Manga the Complete Guide, and they gave their reviews. I remember Sailor Moon, they gave a 3 out of 4, and they gave Cardcaptor Sakura a 4 out of 4. And that's a pretty good way of, giving them the scores. I would actually give them those scores. Cardcaptor Sakura is a 4 out of 4 for me, whereas Sailor Moon, because of the villains and the character development, I just have to knock out a star and just say, 3 out of 4. It's good, but not brilliant. It's not as good as everyone's making out to be. Last thing I might mention is the fact that I got this as part of the collection box set. So you have your cover there. You have this, which will make up a big picture when I get the second one. That's something I'd better actually mention. I do intend to get the second one because, as I said, I am enjoying it. I enjoyed it. But, there was those issues for me that kind of made me hesitant about, becoming a complete fanboy over it. So, and in fact, I'm not going to be a fanboy over it, I don't think. So, yeah. And then also I got in that these stickers. Basically, yeah, that's good. This chibi versions of each of the sellers. So yeah, I think that's fairly cool, and I won't be using these because they're collectibles. So overall, yes, I recommend them, but not nearly as much as other Magical Girl series. If I've seen, if in comparison, okay, 2 other Magical Girl series I've seen that are brilliant. Cardcaptor Sakura and Puella Magica Magica. And those 2 are brilliant, I can tell you that. So it's not with the genre that I have an issue with. It's just, I just have issues, as I said before. I've made it very clear by now. So, actually, just before I go, I really want to hear your opinions on this. Out of all the series I reviewed, this is the one I want the most comments for, the most, if I get a video response for it, brilliant, someone saying, hey, you're wrong, and let me list out why you're wrong. I'd appreciate that. Because, about the series, it just, so many people love it, and I want to know why it's loved so much, so if you guys could comment on it, to say, why you like it, why you don't like it, are you interested in getting it still, having heard my opinions, and if someone finds it easier to, give their opinions through a video response that's like half-hour long or something, I wouldn't mind that. I'd watch that and I'd comment on it and I'd say, you're right, you're wrong, etc, etc. So, yeah, that's my review of Sailor Moon. 3 out of 4. Which comes out to 7.5 out of 10, which, you know, you can do the math yourself. I usually go by 5 stars, but I think the 4-star thing works well from the Manga Complete Guide. Yeah, so thank you for watching. The word today is blue. Yeah, if you could just say blue in your comment, just to prove that you got to the end of this video, then I would appreciate that. So please comment, subscribe, etc, etc, but really, really do comment. I really want to hear your opinions. Even if you don't subscribe, even if you don't like, I really want to hear your opinions on this series and my reviewing technique. So thanks for watching and goodbye.